What we're going to compare now is a hypothetical detonation of 3 different kinds of nuclear weapons over New York City. The reason for doing this is to try and get a sense of scale on the magnitude of these weapons, because it's extremely hard to get a grip on that. Please bear this in mind when and if you experiment with Nuke Map online. It's a great program and it's incredibly useful, but it is very easy to underestimate what it would actually be like on the ground when you're just seeing circles drawn on a map. You think you'll survive no problem. Probably not the case. So first scenario we're going to walk through is the detonation of a Nagasaki-sized weapon about 2,000 feet above Central Park in New York City. I'm not saying we're doing this. I'm just doing this as an exercise to get a handle on the magnitude. So within about a half kilometer, which is where the fireball will touch down, it's where you will have the most severe damage. Virtually every building will be destroyed. Virtually every living organism in the area will die. The only buildings that might survive would be the shells of some of the very strong concrete buildings. Otherwise, everything is up, basically either vaporized or on fire. When you move out to, or torn apart from the blast, when you move out to about 2 kilometers radius, so we're just getting onto the Hudson River, for instance, across Manhattan, you are going to see about 50% of the people dying in the area, about 50% severely injured if they do survive, and still most buildings destroyed and most material going up in flames. When you get out to about 3.5 to 4 kilometers, it is a higher chance that you'll survive if you happen to be there, especially if you were behind some kind of a barrier to protect you against the blast and the radiation, although the radiation will not have gone particularly far. The fire is not as likely to have spread that far either, so you have a significant chance of surviving, but you're definitely going to be exposed to damage from flying debris and have a non-trivial likelihood of being injured. When you get out to closer to 8 to 10 kilometers away, you'll still have broken glass in the windows. You'll still feel the effects of the blast, but people are most likely to survive out at that distance. If we shift to a 1 megaton warhead, which is similar to kind of on the big end of the magnitude of warheads in the US and Russian arsenals, so this is significantly larger than the weapons that were used in 1945. This is where you see a dramatic increase in the destruction produced by this weapon. The destruction of near total, virtually every building, and almost 100% fatalities is about a 3-kilometer radius. And that is all the way across Manhattan, if you're comparing it to New York City. Out to about 5 kilometers, you're dealing with a very high chance of death to any organisms and serious building destruction and fires spreading across this region as well. Out to about 8 kilometers radius, you start to see people being able to survive to a limited extent. We're dealing with something on the order of 5 to 10% of people dying in that region, in that zone, at that distance, and 45% of people being injured. So you still have a very serious problem in terms of medical care as far as 8 kilometers away from the detonation. And then about 10 to 12 kilometers away, you're out at that radius where you're much more likely to survive than not, but possibly with some damage to your structure and possibly some injury as a result. If you go up to near the top of the scale of the magnitude of weapons that have been produced, in this case a 25 megaton weapon, you have to start zooming even further out to encompass all the damage that will take place. The near total destruction radius is 10 kilometers. So 20 kilometers across around that detonation point will be completely destroyed, which is the bulk of downtown New York and well beyond Manhattan. If you go out to 16 kilometers, there's a chance of survival, but most people will die and will have been, or at least been severely damaged in the process. You have to go out to 30 kilometers before you start to have a chance of surviving this process and of having any buildings survive and of the fires not spreading out to this distance. And it's only at 48 kilometers where you're down to maybe, or about 50 kilometers, where you're down to about 50% of people being injured. And most people surviving and most buildings surviving as a result. So you have to, at New York City driving speeds, you'll have to drive close to an hour away from the detonation point to get to the point where people are likely to have survived to a significant extent.